Russia is falling apart. No fuel, new attacks, and NATO on alert. Gas stations are empty. Russia is pushing on 5 fronts and bleeding troops. Zaporizhia is the next big target. Another Russian drone crossed into NATO airspace. Romania says enough and calls for more sanctions. This is not just a crisis, this is collapse. Welcome to Ukraine Today. I'm Zaroslava Kolesnikova, and in this episode we expose how Russia is breaking down, Ukraine is striking harder and smarter, and why global pressure must turn into action now. Let's get into it. Russia out of gas. Fuel crisis explodes across Putin's empire. Russia, once called a gas station with nukes, is now out of gas. Massive fuel shortage hit the country, with mile-long lines at station and no real answers from the Kremlin. While officials beg citizens to just wait, the so-called energy superpower is collapsing from the inside. It is the final crack in Putin's war machine. Full story in our report.
It's total chaos. There's absolutely no gasoline. I've been to 5 gas stations. I thought I'd have to start walking everywhere. That's it. This is a disaster. I honestly have no idea what to do.
Russians are complaining more and more often about the lack of gasoline at gas stations. A serious fuel crisis first broke out in Primory, Zabaikalsky Krai, as well as in the territory of Crimea, which is temporarily occupied by Russia. Now it's spreading to more and more Russian regions.
I'm sitting in my car. There's no gasoline. All over the city. Not at a single gas station.
Drivers are now regularly sharing videos of huge lines at gas stations on social media.
The trucks are just standing there. There's no diesel fuel, just like there's no gasoline. It's just impossible to fill up. Well, I don't know how we're going to get there. What will happen next? Why isn't anyone doing anything about this?
A line to the outskirts to the gas station. Everything's fine. They're promising just a couple of drops per tank.
Right now, the fuel shortage is also being felt in the Ryazan, Nizhny Novgorod, Saratov, Samara, Ulyanovsk, Penza, Rostov and Astrakhan regions, as well as in Kalmykia and Tatarstan. Disruptions in fuel supplies are also being reported in the Amur, Magadan and Sakhalin regions, Khabarovsk Krai, Yakutia, the Jewish Autonomous Region, and Chukotka, according to the Moscow Times, citing data from the Independent Fuel Union of the Russian Federation.
For several months now, I've been telling people on air in Russia, guys, remember the old Russian folk practices. Buy some metal gas cans and keep extra gasoline in your garage so you can refuel and get by if needed. Apparently people are having fun and didn't fill up their gas cans. Well, now they're suffering.
Due to problems with the shipment of a 92 and a 95 gasoline, some independent gas stations in the regions have temporarily closed or are operating irregularly.
I'm walking past the gas station. It's probably around 8 o'clock p.m. now. The monitor isn't lit up. So what's going on at the gas station right now? That is, there is no 92 and there is no 95. Cars pull up, pause, and then turn around.
Gasoline prices in Russia are hitting record highs. Since the beginning of the year, its cost has risen by almost 50%. Starting July 29th, Russia completely banned gasoline exports until the end of August. According to the Kremlin, this was supposed to cool down the fuel market, where prices were already approaching record levels at that time. But due to the global fuel crisis, the export ban was extended until October 31st. But even this restriction did not affect either the availability of gasoline or its price.
There's no choice. In any case, you have to fill up. Well, we're waiting for prices to go back down.
We have to endure, yes, basically, well, we'll have to anyway, because the job itself doesn't allow us not to endure.
The Kremlin is trying to freeze gasoline prices manually, reports the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service. But this will not solve the problem of fuel shortages. According to experts, after successful Ukrainian drone attacks, Russia has already lost between 17 and 20% of its oil refining production capacity.
Administrative price controls have 3 consequences: a reduction in trade volumes, the loss of the exchange's function as a price indicator, and the emergence of a grey market. The imposed restrictions practically indicate the Russian government's inability to resolve the dilemma through market-based methods. Pressure on the market will only increase, the shortage will grow, and grey market trading will become the main channel for fuel supply. From a statement by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine on the agency's website.
All of this is a consequence of the war against Ukraine, which, according to experts, every Russian is now truly feeling, since the war has made the Russian economy extremely vulnerable, and if it is not ended soon, a collapse is inevitable not only in the fuel sector, but in other areas as well. Natalia Gusova, Vladimir Stengelov for Freedom TV channel.
Russia pushes on 5 fronts, new offensive brewing in Zaporizhia. The Russian army is launching a massive push, attacking on 5 fronts at once. In Zaporizhia, near Veliko-Mikhailivka, the occupiers are preparing for a new offensive. Their target, the village of Verbov. Ukraine's defenders are holding the line, but Russia is throwing everything it has at breaking through. If this is the start of a new wave of assaults, we have the full situation on the front lines next.
The occupiers are trying to break through the Ukrainian defenses. The Russians are advancing simultaneously on 5 sections of the front. Thus, in the Veliko-Mikhailivka direction, in the Zaporizhia region, the enemy is actively preparing for the offensive phase. The main goal of the occupiers is to reach the village of Verbov.
We always knew that it would.
We found out there would be assault actions, but we didn't expect the enemy to advance on such a broad front.
The situation is a bit better in the Novopavlivka direction. Here, our defenders managed to take control of the settlement of Filial. Previously, it was repeatedly attacked by the enemy, who is trying to seize control of it. But now, the positions are held by the Ukrainian armed forces. This tactical strongpoint, the military explains, is extremely important for the armed forces of Ukraine, as it allows them to monitor the movement of enemy infantry and equipment. The situation is difficult but stable in the Pokrovsk direction as well. The main fighting there is concentrated in the area of Vladimirovka. The Ukrainian armed forces control most of the settlement, but the enemy does not stop. They strike with glide bombs, try to change the tactical situation, and may attempt to break through our lines. At the same time, Ukrainian units are conducting counterattacks southeast of Sofiivka to regain control over the local tree lines.
The enemy is not stupid.
The enemy is not stupid at all. After each assault, they conduct a debriefing. They take what works and use it the next time. And what doesn't work, they don't use again. That's why, indeed, in this case, there was very active cooperation among the FPV drone operators. There was active cooperation with reconnaissance UAVs like Zola, and then the Lancets were launched. The enemy is responding very actively.
On the Konstantinovka direction, the Russian army is trying to gain a foothold in the dacha areas in front of the city, building up forces and equipment for a breakthrough. Nevertheless, our fighters are systematically targeting the occupiers, so for now the location remains in a so-called gray zone. The key vector for the Russians right now is the southeastern flank. It is from there that the main assault on the city may begin, and the further course of the fighting depends on our ability to timely detect and eliminate concentrations of enemy forces.
The artillery performed exceptionally well in the operation. A lot of their light vehicles and cars were blown up by mines. Since we are a normal, regular brigade in terms of engineering, we fortify the front line very well.
The fighting does not subside in the Siversk-Lyman direction either. Dronivka, Siversk itself, and nearby villages on the approaches to the city have come under attack. Active combat operations are also continuing in Zarekne. Neither we nor the enemy have stable control over the territory there. At the same time, special forces from the main intelligence directorate struck an enemy anti-aircraft missile system. The GUR fighters detected and successfully hit a Buk M3 system belonging to the Russian invaders. The cost of this air defense system ranges from $40 to $50 million. Today, the Kremlin also lost another one of Putin's expensive military toys. This is the Orion Strike Reconnaissance UAV. Its operational range is about 300 kilometers, and the approximate cost of the downed Iron Bird is over $5 million. Ukrainian drones recently flew into another Russian oil refinery. The UAVs attacked a number of Russia's oil refining facilities and enemy defense industry sites. A large methanol production plant in the Russian city of Gubaka, Perm-Krai, was hit. The strike on the occupiers' key chemical infrastructure, located more than 1,600 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, came as a real shock to the Kremlin. The Kyryshi oil refinery in the Leningrad region was also targeted. According to Russian reports, 3 drones were shot down in the area of the city of Kyryshi, but their debris caused a fire on the facility's grounds. However, eyewitness videos suggest otherwise. Footage from the refinery looks more like a direct drone strike than shrapnel damage to the oil processing plant. By the way, the Kyryshi oil refinery is considered one of the largest in Russia, and before the arrival of Ukrainian drones was capable of processing about 20 million tons of oil per year. Unfortunately, things were also loud the night before in the Kyiv region. In the middle of the night, explosions were heard on the railway there. Powerful flashes and repeated sounds of explosions thundered in the area of the village of Kalinivka. As it turned out, shells detonated there while being transported by rail. A series of explosions damaged the overhead lines, resulting in dozens of train departures being delayed, and trains are now running around the damaged section. By a random coincidence, the Kharkiv-Przemysl passenger train found itself at the epicenter of the explosions. The train made an emergency stop, and hundreds of passengers were urgently evacuated from the scene to the nearest forest belt. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, and after a few hours, the train continued its journey along the route. And of course, there were losses as well.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Russia violates NATO airspace. Romania demands new sanctions. Another Russian drone crossed into NATO territory, this time into Romania, and now Romania is calling for further action. The Romanian foreign minister says it's time to adopt the 19th sanctions package at fast. Meanwhile, NATO allies are reinforcing the eastern flank. Russia keeps testing the red lines, but will the West finally strike back with full force? Details in our report.
Due to the growing Russian threat, Poland is accelerating military training for its population. In just the first 7 months of this year, 20,000 people have signed up for voluntary training. According to the Ministry of Defense's forecasts, by the end of the year, the number of trained individuals could double and reach 40,000. The military budget is also increasing, from 2.2% of GDP in 2022 to a record 4.7% in 2025. This is the highest figure in NATO, surpassing even Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. As Reuters notes, the widespread willingness of Poles to go to training grounds is a direct reflection of the fear of possible aggression from Moscow and the society's determination to meet it fully armed.
I always say that I will do everything to protect my child. I will fight with all my strength and determination, right up to the very end, to protect him.
I am the eldest of my 3 siblings, so I feel the need to protect my family just as our ancestors once defended these lands. I feel a responsibility to continue this tradition if the need arises.
Warsaw's drive to strengthen its defense capabilities is no coincidence. On September 10th, 21 Russian drones violated Polish airspace, according to Marcin Przydacz, the president's advisor on international affairs. The response was immediate. NATO activated Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty, and in Poland itself, the large-scale NATO operation Eastern Sentinel was launched. And this is only the beginning. President Karol Nawrocki is heading to Berlin and Paris to personally discuss the incident with the Russian drones, according to the head of his office.
These are very important visits, which one could say are doubly significant in the context of the current geopolitical situation of the unprecedented drone attack and the violation of Polish airspace by Russian drones. This is a conversation with our allies, but it is also a broader conversation. Of course, military security and cooperation within NATO in order to respond to the Russian threat. Marcin Przydacz, advisor to the President of Poland on international affairs, in a comment to Polish radio.
The American side is convinced that if Russian UAVs were indeed intentionally flying toward Poland, then this is a step towards serious escalation on the part of the Kremlin. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also announced that Washington will hold consultations with its NATO partners.
Did you see how NATO responded to this appropriately? We do not want this to happen again. We consider this to be unacceptable, regrettable, and a dangerous development. I think it will take a few more days for everyone to fully get used to it. There is no doubt that the drones were launched intentionally. The question is whether these drones were specifically targeted at Poland. If that's the case, then obviously it would be a very escalatory step.
Russia does not stop its provocations in the airspace of NATO member countries. On the night of September 14th, a Russian drone flew over Romania. As stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the UAV penetrated 10 kilometers into the country and remained there for about an hour. The Romanian Air Force scrambled combat aircraft.
Romania condemns Russia's behavior and is taking the necessary measures to protect its sovereignty and security. We are in constant contact with our partners and allies in the EU and NATO regarding Russia's provocations, including the latest one. We must effectively raise the cost for Russia's blatantly illegal and provocative actions by promptly adopting the 19th package of sanctions and the full range of measures under NATO's Operation Eastern Shield. I will also raise the issue of Russia's actions at the UN General Assembly, calling for strict enforcement of sanctions at the international level. Oana Silvia Tsoiu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania, on social network X.
In addition to unmanned aerial vehicles, the Kremlin also violates the airspace of NATO countries using its fighter jets. On September 13th, according to the Lithuanian army, Russian aircraft were flying with their radar transponders turned off and without flight plans. Because of this, NATO fighter jets were scrambled twice.
They were scrambled to observe and escort the Russian aircraft that violated the regulations. Both incidents were not related to the preventive measures in Poland due to drones, from a publication by Delphi.
Analysts emphasize the Russian Federation continues to test the North Atlantic bloc. For this purpose, Russia has likely transferred an Iskander missile system to the Kaliningrad region. In footage published online, Russian systems can be seen aimed toward Warsaw, as noted by open-source intelligence analysts. Such a deployment of weaponry could pose a threat to 6 NATO countries. Nikita Skoblikov for Freedom TV channel.
114 battles in one day. Russia blends on all fronts. The front is on fire. 114 combat clashes in just one day. Russia is pushing hard in Pokrovsk, Novopavlivka, Siversk and Kupiansk. But Ukraine isn't just holding the line, it's drilling the enemy both off the battlefield and deep behind the lines. What's really happening across the front? Full breakdown in our report.
In the Kupiansk direction, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers repelled all Russian attacks in the areas of the settlements of Kupiansk and Stepna Novoselivka. As the fighters note, in this section of the front, the enemy sends small groups to storm, unsuccessfully trying to find weaknesses in the Ukrainian defense. But the defenders detect and neutralize all saboteurs. In one of the recent operations, the soldiers used a tank. As a result of its precise shots, the enemy was eliminated.
Over there, they either have trouble or a concentration of occupiers before an assault. We arrive and take care of it, whether it's dugouts, a concentration of forces, or whatever we're told. Farms, buildings, anything like that.
Forward. There aren't any major movements there, so to speak. The breakthrough area they tried to create has been contained. They tried to bring in new forces, but they didn't have enough troops or resources, and we beat them to it. The actions of both the General Staff and accordingly our special units have neutralized a possible tactical attack and the enemy's successes in this direction.
Fighting continues in the Pokrovsk direction as well. This section of the front remains one of the hottest. According to the General Staff, Ukrainian soldiers have repelled the most Russian attacks here. The enemy unsuccessfully tried 35 times to storm the positions of the defense forces. Another 15 times, the Russians launched offensives in the Novopavlivka direction. The defenders repelled Russian attacks near 8 settlements, and 12 times the Russian occupiers sent their soldiers to storm positions on the Siversk section of the front.
Lay it on. 333. Fire.
A Russian Buk M3 surface-to-air missile system was detected and destroyed by the special forces of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense near the settlement of Oleksandrivka in the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia region. It should be noted that the cost of such a SAM system ranges from $40 to $50 million.
Both the Vampire and in general other drones play a significant role on the front assisting the infantry. And in some areas, they are among the most important means of striking the enemy. Everything needs to work as a single mechanism: infantry, artillery, and drones.
Ukrainian soldiers have also reported successfully repelling a Russian attack in the southern direction. The soldiers note that their quadcopters stopped a column of 3 armored vehicles. A tank, a so-called MTLB, and a self-propelled vehicle were destroyed. And aerial reconnaissance captured the route of the Russian assault. Military experts also highly praise the work of FPV drone operators, calling UAVs the main strike force on the front.
We are already detecting them online or during their movement, and we destroy them either while they're on the move or at a specific fortified area they've taken over or captured. This model shows that the effectiveness of drones now, especially on the battlefield and in the frontline zone, has increased, I believe, by an order of magnitude. This already allows us to reduce attacks across all sectors.
Russia lost another 880 soldiers in the war against Ukraine over the past day. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total losses of the Russian army have exceeded 1,094,000 military personnel. In addition, over the past day, 3 Russian tanks, 42 artillery systems, a multiple rocket launcher system, as well as 102 units of enemy vehicles and special equipment were destroyed.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you want real updates, not Kremlin lies, like, comment and subscribe. And most importantly, become a sponsor and join our mission. Your support helps us expose war crimes, track the truth and defend Ukraine's voice on the global stage. Stay strong, stay informed and stay with Ukraine.